All right, well, welcome back to our program for this afternoon. We have, I guess, two guests joining us remotely, and we have me joining us here. I won't say live because we're all live. I'm going to ask Professor Widdowson to speak first, and then myself, and then Professor Ashford. By way of quick introduction of my co-panelists here, Frances Widdowson received BA and MA in Political Science at the University of Victoria, and a PhD in Poli-Sci from York University. She's taught a number of universities in Ontario and the Maritimes and worked for 5 years as a policy analyst for the government of the Northwest Territories. She uses political economy perspective in her research on Aboriginal environmental policy, politics of religion, and she's going to tell us more about her working experience. Professor Robert Ashford, I've been privileged to know for a long time, a fellow law professor at Syracuse University College of Law, teaches in the business area. And Professor Ashford, saliently to me, is founder of the socioeconomic section of the, and Society of Socioeconomics, the section being part of the Association of American Law Schools. And I am Rick Pelt-Steele, professor of law at the University of Massachusetts. And so without further ado, let me invite Frances to begin.
Can people see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm in Calgary right now. Thank you very much to the conference organizers for inviting me, and to Ken Westhughes for bringing a poster about the conference to the Society for Academic Freedom and Scholarship meeting. And I'm a board member there. And so I was very excited to hear about this conference, because I think my case is an archetypical case. And I think everyone here should be incredibly interested in my case. I don't want to boast, but I think it's better than anything I've ever seen, because someone before, sorry, I can't remember all the names, was talking about whether mobbing is justified or unjustified. This is an interesting question. Is mobbing sometimes justified? My case, it is completely, just no holds barred, unjustified. It is absurd what has happened to me. And I keep on expecting someone to enter into the frame, which is going to say, whoa, this is crazy. But that never happens. And it just gets more and more entrenched within the legal framework. And I've been through, I was fired in December 2021. I had to wait a year and a half for arbitration. I went through a whole year of arbitration, 30 hearing days, 8 days on the stand. I just got the decision about 2 weeks ago. I'm still told I can't talk about that because there's final submissions being made. In the meantime, my former dean, Jennifer Pettit, posted an email to my entire department with a misleading interpretation of the decision. I asked the union to post a statement correcting this misleading email. The union has done nothing about this. And so I'm saying that's it. I am going to talk about my case right now. I am not going to talk about the decision because I'm waiting for that final thing. But since the Dean of Arts, Jennifer Pettit, has posted this misleading email, I am going to talk about my case, and let's let the chips fall where they may. I've had it. And for people who take the nice approach about, welcoming people in, inclusivity and so on, this will not cut it. You need to be tough. And the best metaphor for this is what Gad said, calls the honey badger, which is my spirit animal. And the honey badger has loose skin on its neck. That's what makes it so effective. And when it is grabbed by a larger animal, it can turn defense into offense. and use its teeth to grab that larger animal. And that is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, is I'm going to use my loose skin and my sharp teeth to go after the people who have oppressed me for probably going on 10 years now at Mount Royal University. My case is documented extensively on a website called the Woke-academy.info site. So at www.wokeacademy.info, you will find the paper that I prepared for this conference, the presentation slides, and then in the MR Francis firing area, you will find 18 episodes about what happened with respect to my case. Now, I only have 15 minutes to present here, so I've got to be quick. I can't dilly-dally. And what I want to talk about, I don't want to spend too much time on workplace mobbing because we've talked a lot about that. The relationship between mobbing and wokeism is very important. And I use wokeism in ironic quotation marks because it's a term that's very difficult. And what happens is it gets kind of lumped in with DeSantis and all these people and alt-right and this kind of stuff. But I want to define it in a particular way, which I'm going to do. Then I'm just going to spend a little bit of time on the Francis Widdowson case, which is the actual case, which I have provided an appendix on the wokeacademy.info site, which gives all the evidence that MRU provided. And then wokeism, how wokeism related to my firing, and then give a few thoughts on defending the institutions, not so much the individual, but academic institutions are in terrible shape, and what can be done institutionally to try to defend academic life from the incredibly pernicious force of mobbing. So workplace mobbing, we talked a lot about this. One of the things I wanted to mention is Eve Seguin mentioned in her great article about campus tormentors. She argues that universities are a type of organization that encourages mobbing. That needs some thought. And I think that's true. What is it about universities that encourages mobbing? And I've gone through the literature and I elaborate upon this in my paper, but I think there's three things that I have found that pertain to universities in this regard. First of all, there's an idealistic view about universities, so we're in denial that this can happen there. We think they're idealistic, search for the truth types of institutions, and that Machiavellian dark triad traits can't happen. There's a lot of dark triad traits happening at the university, so that needs to be admitted. Then there's another interesting sort of area of literature about, the universities being sort of separated from direct policy making. So because they're so abstract, you can entrench bad ideas very deeply in universities, and it results in a conformity and groupthink, which often is very irrational and cannot be easily dislodged. And then thirdly, because of the educational process that goes on in getting a PhD and so on, there's a lot of insecurities that creep in because of the association of ideas with the person. So you take your ideas very seriously because they are an embodiment of yourself, and that results in people being very vindictive when they have their ideas questioned. And I experienced this in my own mobbing case, was this terrible, poisonous nastiness that I had to deal with because I was criticizing, the main one was Indigenous ways of knowing, which is a major part of wokeism. So I think that's a very interesting area of research, why universities encourage mobbing, which could be an area for further elaboration. Relationship between mobbing and wokeism. So wokeism, I define it as identity politics that has become totalitarian. That's one of the best definitions I think there is of wokeism. Identity politics is an idea which existed in the universities, came about because, as Ken West uses mentioned, postmodernism gaining a foothold in institutions. That meant that there was no universal truth that could be searched for, and it allowed identity politics to gain a foothold. Identity politics is, in order for people who perceive to be oppressed to overcome their oppression and be empowered, their identities should be affirmed by others. And that existed for many years in the university. And what happened is I guess, starting in the 2000s, it began to take over the machinery of the institutions. And now it has become like an imposition on everyone through things like diversity, inclusion, and equity offices. So what used to be one perspective has now taken over and imposed itself. And the worst part about it is it appeals to compassion. So that some of these graphics, people say, oh, I thought woke was just being compassionate and kind. Well, that's not what woke is at all. Woke is pretending to be compassionate and kind, and then using one's kind of disarming people to like impose its totalitarian position. And as well, because it has this idea that the legal processes that protect individuals is oppressive, that means that people like myself, who am not Indigenous or not trans, then I don't have the same protections as those who are from these oppressed groups. So it really disadvantages certain members of the academy when they are trying to criticize wokeism. So this is what makes wokeism so important in mobbing, or so suited to mobbing, is because of these characteristics. So in terms of my case, I'm just going to briefly go over this. I think this is the petition that was circulated in 2020, which was part of the whole mobbing process. In terms of the actual evidence that MRU presented, I never found out this actual case until January 2024. That is amazing, that I went through several years not knowing what the case was against me. And that's due to sort of the Kafka-esque character of all these legal processes that go on, that tie you and, put gag orders on you and so on. Anyway, it comes down to 9 tweets. And since I filed 18 complaints against my colleagues to counteract the mobbing that was happening after I got found to be a harasser because of these 3 tweets, one of those 18 complaints was found to be frivolous and vexatious and not made in good faith. So this is the entire case, which I have posted in an appendix on the wokeacademy.info site. And you can look at the kind of tweets they are. And they were satirical tweets about being mobbed, about Indigenous science, about comparing the residential schools to the Holocaust. These were the tweets that were found to be harassing. Wokeism and my firing. Okay, so this is how wokeism specifically relates to my firing. What happened is in 2016, MRU developed an official indigenization policy, the Indigenization Strategic Plan, that directed that Indigenous ways of knowing, which are not ways of knowing, they're beliefs that lack evidence, they must be respected and valued. So that happened. And then I had some triggering incidents that happened in, I believe, July, one day apart in July, beginning of July 2020. And that resulted in Gabrielle Lindstrom, who is a desired indigenization asset, to instigate the mobbing of me. And because people were compassionate towards Lindstrom, whose actions were completely poisonous and disguising her own lack of rigor in the work that she does. People all just flocked to support her, and about 40 people did this online. And then, although MRU decided in, I believe it was December 2019, that social media would not be looked at through official policies, so it was exempt from official policies. It was, if it was on your personal account. This changed in October 2020 when Lindstrom filed a complaint against me. So the policies were directly changed to go after me. And this allowed these policies to be used specifically against me. And that's a characteristic of wokeism as well, is that policies are not evenly applied. They're applied leniently against those that are perceived to be oppressed, and harshly against those who are perceived to be oppressors. And since I was criticizing Lindstrom, her ideas, not her, well, I was making fun of her assertion that she was loving and kind and just trying to bring people together with humility and grace. So whenever I referred to her, I would say the loving and kind Gabrielle Lindstrom, who is just trying to bring people together with humility and grace, while she was trying to get me fired and instigate a bunch of anonymous accounts against me and so on. And that was enraging, of course, to the woke. And they they sharpened their claws at that point in time. But as I said, you know, bring it on. I'm not afraid of them. I will fight them to the end of my days. And then finally, some lines of defense. There's a lot of issues that I discuss in this paper. Academic freedom is under serious assault because of the corporatization of the university. This is a big problem, which is like not just affects woke, has to do with wokeism, but it's more general. I think Eve Sagan talked about this problem in her presentation. And this making of political statements all the time, not just by the university, but by unions and also the Canadian Association of University Teachers. This is poison, because what it does, it makes you seem like you are violating the mission of universities. That needs to be stopped. The secrecy, this is terrible. In arbitration, I found, you know, a number of emails that were making all sorts of false claims about me. And historically, we had administrators who were excellent at Mount Royal. So Mount Royal is another really good case because it was a fantastic institution in 2008 when I was hired. It just has been completely destroyed. And there's two administrators, Manuel Merton and Robin Fisher, who protected me, protected my academic freedom. When they left, you know, these professional managers, part of the professional managerial class, took over. And what happened once is Robin Fisher, when someone sent him a poisonous email, he replied to that email and CC'd me on that email. And that just nipped the poison in the bud. What happened currently is that the current president kind of caters to this. The last two presidents, they kind of have cozy chats with these mobbers, and that enables these mobbers. The unions, this is huge. And I should probably just mention this. Unions, we're in a corporate structure of labor relations, which makes it very, very difficult to resist everything that's happening. My union, the big story about my case, it was the union who went after me, which is not yet, that has not yet come out in its full glory, but they need to be held to account, the people in that union. And it's going to be difficult because I'm relying on the union to defend me. And so I had to go through the whole process, you know, like basically cooperating with the union. And so we'll see what they do. But in the end, everyone is going to be held to account for what's happened. And then finally, there's a wider cultural problem with destruction of Enlightenment values that have happened. Ken Westhues talks about this. I think there's some great material that he's provided. This whole postmodern kind of development that happened in the 1960s. This is just completely destructive to academic institutions. That is a big problem. And it's not just a university problem. It's a wider civilization, societal problem. But the first step in recognizing the problem is realizing it exists. And the legal processes, I agree with Ken, they don't work because they just keep the existing system intact. We need to challenge the existing system, and that can only be done through discussion, debate, and holding those to account who have been destroying our institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.